Welcome to the RPG Podcast.
And we are live.
Oh, God, Patton!
Presented by SHEATH. A Time Wheel production.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. You're listening to the Robert Patton Global Podcast. I was just saying how unprofessional this podcast is, and it is true, but we're getting better as we go along. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And I'm here today with a very special guest, Cyndy Clemens. She is a breath specialist, I would say. She's also into a lot of metaphysical theories and ideas, and we're going to just have a talk, see where it goes, like we do. I mean, it's kind of like a success podcast. We talk about principles of success and what it means and what it takes to be successful. And I think breathing is a huge aspect of life, and controlling it in a way that makes you better is something I don't think a lot of people know about. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Yeah. People still look at me kind of crazy when I say it is your secret superpower.
Yeah.
Above everything else. And once you tap into that, then the sky's the limit.
I've been doing it a lot. I've worked with you a few times, and I remember I hadn't slept in a long time, which is why I was going to certain different modalities of treatment. And I remember I fell asleep during the session, and it was one of the most peaceful experiences I've ever had.
Yeah.
You had me all set up on the pillows and just kind of guiding me, hands-on, physical, because you can do it from an app, I guess, or something, maybe
right.
a video online, but
Mm-hmm.
it's different when you have someone there, pointing to...
Yeah. What I'm doing essentially is I'm communicating with the body. So it's out of the mind space. And so when I place my hands on a person's body, their awareness automatically goes there. And wherever the awareness goes, the breath follows. So it's less about all of the mind stuff. I like apps too. Obviously we just went through a quarantine period of time, and you had to get really creative. I'm obviously not doing as much live in-person stuff. It just depends on who I'm working with. So I had to get creative. It's bottom line is just get people breathing, just to have the awareness to just start breathing more deeply, and through whatever you're feeling is, even if you can't have a session, just starting to do that will be a game changer. So,
yeah, I think it's naturally, I remember a long time ago, I had the epiphany of just long, deep breaths having an effect on my body. And you realize it if you do it. I would have better ideas, because I would be doing it when I was in the bath. I would take a bath, a long hot bath, and take some very long, deep breaths, and just find myself slipping into some pretty deep states of consciousness and coming out with answers to just questions. This is pre-SHEATH. This is I'm in the Army, and my life is kind of a shamble, and I would fill the mirror with thoughts that I had during these I would slip into a dream state.
When people first come to the breath and they first start, connecting the breath, they have these really major, profound spiritual experiences. I don't have a lot of those anymore either, but it's because my day, I've integrated it, and my daily experience is more like that. So it's not about the big, the big pops around it. One of the people that I trained with, actually, she was a recovering addict, and she'd been in recovery for 20 years or something like that. And even in the breath, she was chasing that high. Mm-hmm. she'd get so frustrated because she'd come out of it and she'd be like, what am I doing wrong? And then one day she just finally got it. She broke out laughing and she got it. And she just realized that whenever you're chasing something, it's going to elude you. And so that's the nature of addiction, is like chasing that thing that you think is missing when it's already right there. That was like the big cosmic joke, right? And like, even like you said, when you first started breathing, you instinctually started doing it. That's the cool thing, is it's actually innate. You're born with a breathing pattern. We just get away from it because, you know, society as it stands right now is like, no, you need to do things this way, and you need to listen to this, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. Yeah.
Nobody stops to take a breath.
Yeah.
Or quite a few. And if you stop to take quite a few, you might be pleasantly surprised at the positive feelings you get. You know, it was just a stress reliever. And, you know, I actually get kind of high when I do it. I have these bursts of something, explosions in my brain and spine, where I was telling my brother the other day, like, I'm feeling chemicals excreting from my spine, and I don't know if it's in my mind or not, but I've done DMT and it's kind of like that, but like a really quick one. It's like 10 seconds to 30 seconds, and then you're back to where you were, but it's like,
it's subtle.
But I get like a euphoria. You have energy afterwards, and more, maybe clarity of mind, and just a lot of everything's real positive.
One of the people that I trained with too, he said, you know, joking, you know, that one of these days breathing is going to become illegal. You know, because it actually does activate the DMT that is already in your brain. It's just very subtle. So that's one of the reasons why people think, and it's not that there's anything wrong with plant medicine. I think that plant medicine is like a really excellent doorway. That's what it's meant to be for people that just haven't had that experience at all. And then like that next, you peel away that layer and you start doing the breathing, and it activates the natural DMT that's already in your brain, but it's just very subtle.
I don't think mine is, I don't know if I'm doing it wrong, but mine's not subtle at all. And I'm joking kind of. Like, it's like to the point sometimes it's more subtle, but like I will have to grab onto the arms of my chair and like brace myself because I feel like I'm about to like
have a big wave.
So I'm like, oh shit, here we go. And then if I'm in the bath or I'm in the sauna, it intensifies it because of the heat. It is just, it relaxes you more, and you want to relax every muscle fiber in your body to oxygenate the whole cellular system. I think I'm talking out of my...
No, you're right. You're right on. Actually, that's the roots of quote unquote breath work. You know, it's like the guys that are, you know, I can't even think of the names of them right now. It's so funny. Usually I can remember their names. But the grandfathers of breath work, they were doing LSD, sitting in hot tubs, and doing deep breathing. And then they realized, they thought that it was just the LSD or just the hot tubs or whatever. And then they found out that if you're doing deep breathing, like in a hot tub or in something hot, you're going to have like a rebirthing experience, where you're going to have like an experience of being born or emerging out of something. It's just like this big wow kind of experience. And then they've also done experiments, and I've had, you know, experiences too, of working with cold water. Cold water takes you to death, you know, takes you to the edge of death, right? And so because I've had those experiences, I'm not afraid of either one. Like, I just recognize that they're just dimensions of experience. And so, yeah, if you have somebody that's really terrified of dying, you know, do some breath work with them, you know, in cold environments. Yeah. I'm not an expert, so I don't necessarily mix them, because I've heard some incidents where you can like pass out underwater or whatever. So yeah, you definitely want to have somebody that's an expert in like So what we would do is just have somebody float, so you're just holding them and having them breathe. And then at any point and there have been times, like I had an experience with somebody that I was training with where she was like, gone kind of thing. He was kind of afraid she was going to die. And he just had to keep talking to her because there was a part of her that wanted to leave the body. That was like why it was happening. And I was even having the experience. I'm on the shore and I'm breathing and I felt deeply connected to her and I could feel her slipping. So every one of us in our connection with one another, it's like, that's the thing. It's like when you're breathing with a bunch of people, you really feel the interconnectedness. And so it's like I could feel myself like having this sort of telepathic conversation with her to like just stay. I didn't even really know what was going on. I was in my own experience, but I could still feel that there was something going on over there. And I could even feel the fear that was happening with the teacher and stuff like that. But she needed to have that experience. And then we kind of both had this sort of little kind of crossing over experience and then came back, so for her from that moment on, she didn't flirt with death anymore. She wasn't like purposely putting her into situations that were going to perpetuate her feelings of wanting to die or anything like that. And she just didn't. And she wanted to choose life, like she needed to have that experience. But you gotta, it's not something you want to go, you don't want to go out into a lake and go breathing by yourself. You want to make sure you're working with an expert, just like Wim Hof, right?
Yeah, like a shaman.
Yeah, you want to know, you want to be with somebody that knows what they're doing and that kind of thing. And so that's why they say kids don't do this at home.
I'm
even with breathing,
I say not as I do. I kind of push the limits. I do the breathing, like I said, in like the bath and whatnot. But I'm like one of those Tim Ferriss, like I'm a guinea pig type guys. I've done all of the like psychedelics and like performance enhancing drugs, and like this is, like you said, it's an internal superpower that we have within. And it's like, I can prove it. I'll tell you this. So when I was like, I take a nap every day, and it's this thing I've been doing since I was 20. I don't know. It's kind of a crutch. And I'm like, I just want to doze off for a minute. I'll come back and I work hard. Obviously I built an empire, just kidding. Right. But I have to have my nap. But when we were moving, I didn't have time to take a nap. And what do? I did the Wim Hof breathing, like at the time when I was going to take my nap normally, and I didn't have to take my nap. And I did that for like 2 weeks straight. And I came to this conclusion: I don't ever have to take naps again. Now, of course, I'm taking naps again because the moving's over and I don't have to stay up. And it is this weird mental crutch that I have, that it's so cozy in the bed. And I don't know. I want to, but I know that if I don't have time or I, need to perform, I have another tool
right
that I can use, and it totally works.
Well, so you got what you needed out of that. Like, when you're under extreme amounts of pressure and you have to push through, like you have this tool that can help you do that. Mm-hmm. And I would even say to just take the word crutch out of needing a nap, because I think naps are great.
Yeah.
So
it is.
I mean, if it's not interfering with your life.
Yeah.
Well,
and I know a lot of people do it, and I always give myself a hard time because I'm like, think about how much more I could accomplish with the time spent taking a nap. But maybe I would be less of myself if I didn't have that. Right.
You got to replenish.
Yeah. And, like the Mexican culture, which I am derivative of, is known for siestas, and maybe it's just in my DNA.
Right.
I can't be mad at myself.
Yeah. I've had an intention for a while for working more in the mainstream with people. And so I put myself in certain environments that were more mainstream. When you practice breath work, even if you don't do it professionally, but you practice it, you start to realize, again, it's like a superpower, right? And you awaken something in you, and you recognize that there's something, and people will give you the feedback that there's something really different about you. And you start to realize that you're emanating something. And so it becomes less important the what of you're doing, but, and where you're coming from. So when you're coming from that place, you recognize that whatever you're emanating is having an impact on the people around you. So it's kind of like a little bit of a grand experiment for me to be in the mainstream. And I talk about breath work whenever I can. It's just like so much a part of who I am.
Yeah. Love Breath on Instagram.
Yeah,
maybe.
Love Breath. Yeah.
And I know you mentioned you were either starting or thinking about starting a podcast.
I actually do have a podcast.
Okay.
I do have a podcast, and it is on Anchor FM.
Okay, I've heard of that. The app.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Always expanding. I've got a YouTube channel too so my podcast goes on the YouTube channel, and I do the whole visual creative thing in addition to it. So that's been fun. But yeah, that's what I was doing. I was like, I knew I still had to help people. I could just literally feel people just stressing. And, like if there's something you can't do something about right this second, like just coming back to the breath will really shift that like 100%, 1,000%. So
I know I've been sleeping better. I know that my stress level is way down, and I know it sounds like a sales pitch or something, but maybe it is a sales pitch. Because it's worth. I don't want anything from you listening to.
Yeah. I'm
not going to get anything from trying to sell this to you other than a better world, maybe, because I think just having more energy, you can get more shit done. When you're getting your shit done, you're not going to be as stressed out or as overwhelmed about the idea of having to do whatever it is that you have to do.
Right.
It's like,
well, it's interesting because, one of the things I talk about a lot is, so we talk about stress a lot in our world, right? So we think stress is like this external thing, and it's because of these things that are happening to us and all that kind of stuff. But really, stress is an internal mechanism. And the way that it works in your body is you are stimulated into fight or flight. That activates the cortisol in your system, and your body gets flooded with cortisol, and you feel that stressful feeling it's literally a chemical reaction that's happening in the body. So when you breathe, you literally you're sending a signal to the brain that it's time to relax. And so the brain will shift that, will turn off that cortisol and activate the theta levels of brain waves in your brain. And that's what will put you into a relaxing state.
do you think cigarettes is the opposite?
I think that it's interesting. You remember, Roseanne from the Roseanne show?
Yeah.
She was a heavy smoker and stuff like that. And I think somebody years and years ago, somebody told her, that really it's like the only time she's giving her a moment to pause, giving herself a moment to pause.
Deep breath.
So the therapist said, why don't you just skip the cigarettes and just take a deep breath. So, and I've worked with lots of people that's the only time they give them, it's like, oh, I have to do this thing because society won't let me otherwise take a moment to pause. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, well, I have to do this. Whereas if you say, well, I have to go outside and take a deep breath, people will look at you like you're crazy.
Breath break. Yeah, you should get a 15-minute deep breath break.
Yeah.
That'd be way better.
So, so I think it's therapeutic in that way.
Okay.
And so they're taking a deep breath and,
Well, real quick, I guess what my question was, you said that when you're doing the deep breathing, it triggers the body's relaxation kind of response. But cigarettes, some people get relaxed from smoking cigarettes. In fact, that's why I bring it up, because I used to smoke cigarettes to relax, to go to sleep. But now I do the vape, the Juul, and I believe that the nicotine is not, I think it's like turning off that relaxed
Yeah.
body
Well, it's a
state.
stimulant.
Exactly.
It's a stimulant, right? So yeah, it has the opposite effect. So it's more of a psychological thing. And then the body, it's funny the way the body mind works. Like, you can talk yourself into all kinds of things, right? So yeah, it has the opposite effect. So if you just simply, tried the exercise of taking some deep breaths so that you can do that and not sabotage it.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm doing it to relax, but I'm getting physically, biologically, the opposite response.
Yeah.
But
isn't that what we do in life? Like, it mirrors life. Your breathing pattern is a mirror reflection of how you respond to life. And so when you change your breathing pattern, you also are going to change how you respond to life. Mm-hmm. So that's where you can, because a lot of times we try to do it the other way, right? We try to rearrange our life in a certain way so that we can respond to it differently.
So we feel better.
But it hardly ever works, because it's not
External.
an outside job. Yeah, it's external. Yeah. So when we do it internally, then how we're perceiving reality shifts, because now we're in a theta level of brainwave patterns that perceives reality completely different.
Yeah, more clearly, probably.
Yeah, more clearly, and not colored by all the things. So
yeah, like sometimes I'll be looking for something, super stressed out. It's right in front of my face, and I can't see it. Like, if time is of the essence, I got people waiting on me. I need to do this thing, and I'm scrambling, and I don't feel like I'm in a very stable brainwave, maybe like a theta. I'm like in this weird tunnel vision state of mind. And, I guess if I just slow down for a second, take a deep breath, but I don't have time to take a deep breath.
Right. I've worked with a lot of moms, right? So obviously you've breathed with me. And so breathing with me means laying down and breathing for a solid hour. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these moms are like, I don't have an hour to just lay down and breathe. And I'm like, well, so here's the thing. Like, you can still condition your body to breathe through stress by intentionally connecting your breath while you're washing the dishes, while you're folding the laundry, during moments of time when it's not stressful, and retraining. You're literally training your body to breathe correctly. So do it during those moments at the same time. It doesn't mean you have to stop everything to breathe. I do it the way that I do it because, it's kind of like my job is to break up concrete patterns of things. I'm just there to kind of break it up so that it becomes easier for you to do it in those less stressful moments. And then it becomes, your everyday practice. So, or your all the time practice. Like, just getting into the practice of breathing as life is happening is like the point. It's not just, I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to breathe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
even in my exercise, I'm the same way. Right. I'm standing at the sink and I'm doing kicks and all this kind of stuff. I do that all day long rather than take an hour a day. Like, I'm exercising over here. I'm doing that all day long. So I integrate it into my. Yeah.
Yes. Well, can you put into words what is the proper breathing technique? Can you describe it?
Yeah. And I'm going to back up a little bit and say that there are lots of proper breathing techniques. So
maybe when you're doing the dishes,
yeah,
that like
this particular one, is the one that you're born with. So if you watch animals breathe, it's a circular breathing pattern. So if you watch them breathe, they're just breathing along and they just breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And there's hardly ever any pauses in between the inhale and the exhale unless they're in times of stress. It's in the times of stress that we'll tend to hold our breath. And there isn't anything inherently wrong with that. It's just that if we use that as a long-term pattern for not dealing with a stressful moment. Animals don't have any kind of, they don't have that part of their brain developed where they can get into patterns like that unless they're just like in constant stress all the time, right? So you guys deal with rescue animals and you probably see a little bit more of it. But yeah, your natural, it's a natural breathing pattern, but there's lots of different types of breathing patterns that you can do that aren't necessarily natural, but will take you, like the Wim Hof method and stuff like that. Like there's lots of different, that's why I say it's your superpower.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways, but your natural breathing pattern is circular, which means it's connected. There's no pause between the inhale and the exhale. It's diaphragmatic, so you're breathing really deep. Like 60% of your oxygen actually comes from the lower lobes of your lungs.
Why? Or what's that about?
I think it's just because you're designed to breathe really deeply. And so if you're not breathing really deeply, you're not getting enough oxygen. So you're doing a lot more of the more shallow breaths, and you're doing a lot quicker breaths. And that actually keeps you in a state of anxiety.
Well, we're up here at elevation also. Like this is some of the highest elevation you can like survive in, I think.
Yeah.
And so I've had issues breathing since I've been up here. And it's fortuitous, coincidental that I came across this Wim Hof breathing app. My friends were sending me screenshots of how long they were holding their breath during the exhale portion. And I'm like, what is this? There's an app now? Because I had signed up to the Wim Hof website. I never even did like one lesson. He started with yoga. I was like, I thought this was breathing. Anyways, the app just goes straight into the breathing. And you can record your times and share with your friends and stuff, which was very interesting. And so I had started doing that right before we moved here. And now we're living up here. And I really feel like all of these breathing exercises are helping me acclimate and adjust, because I'm a little older. I'm not, like when you're younger, your body will just adjust because that's what it does.
So it's interesting, like when you get into those really cool states, the reason that you can do that is like you do the breathing exercises so that you super oxygenate your body, and then you can afford to hold your breath to go into those states because your body's taken care of.
Okay, so when I exhale, I hold it for like a minute, sometimes up to 2 minutes. I'm like somewhere in between. But then that's not when I have the experience. That's kind of relaxing. That's kind of just like kind of really cool and a weird relaxing state until you get to that, oh shit, I'm dying stage. Like you're like, okay, I'm drowning. How long do I hold it? Keep holding it until you can't hold it for one more second. Then big gasp, hold it and squeeze. And then I'm squeezing, and it's somewhere after like 10 seconds where I'm just like, and I'm like, oh shit. And I'll have to hold on. And it's euphoric, it's psychedelic, and it's energizing too. And I come out of it. I go through a few sessions because I'm like, that was fun. Let me do that again. Right. But then after a few times, I'm like, okay, I got shit to do.
Right.
And I feel great when I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. You're, so you can get into that state, by activating, you breathing really deep.
Something about the pressure too.
Yes.
It's doing something.
Yep.
That's what I think.
Yeah. That's why I say it's a superpower.
Yeah.
So, a lot of what I do is just like, I'm the entryway into having breath awareness. And then you can take a lot of different paths for working with it and seeing what all you can do. Like breathing only through the nose is going to activate your third eye chakra and your crown chakra.
What about like either nostril? I've heard of those. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. Those do a lot of different things too. I don't spend a lot of time doing that.
Well,
but
it's just like in meditation, maybe prior to starting or whatever. And this was a Kundalini yoga thing, I think, actually, now that I'm retracing. But, just go like in through your right, out through your left, in through your left, out through your right. And, just messing around with it. I think that's kind of what you were saying. Yeah.
So, and basically what that does, like when you do the things, that's when you get the awareness, and that's when you get the information. And then what happens is like you just start doing that more and more and more, and you become less interested in enormous amounts of, controversial information that's floating out there. Like that's the thing, right? It's like, well, what's right? What's wrong? What's this? What's that? You start to listen to your own innate wisdom.
So
it starts
crazy.
coming to you, and then you just don't give a shit what anybody's saying. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you can cuss. And I was going to, you were just going to say all the bullshit out there and, it's out there. And the only way to free yourself from it, because they're trying to control us.
Yes.
And they're pitting us against each other by bringing up these topics that we are on polar opposite sides of.
Yes.
Like even me and my wife will watch something that Stacy, obviously, her, but, we're watching the same thing, and I'm seeing it this way. She's seeing it a completely different way, but we're both watching the same thing. And I feel like the media, whoever is, they know that, and that's why they put those topics up into the political discussion and public discussion, because
they want to perpetuate polarization.
Yeah, and the
I'm
more
right,
we
you're
fight
wrong.
against each other, the less we pay attention to them, who are the ones fucking with us and like running away with all the money and so this, like you said, well, you stop to care, but the only way you can stop to care is to just stop paying attention.
Yep.
But it's hard to pull away. But through these realizations, you're like, okay, I have to pull away, actually.
Yeah, because like when you're doing connected breathing, for instance, it starts to feel so good. Mm-hmm. And it feels way better than anything else you can get outside of yourself. And so you just start, and the more you turn inward, the more that awareness expands. And then all the information that is out there is just trite, it's just like, it just doesn't have any.
But there's a feeling to it. And that's what's so enticing about it. And we all want to feel something.
Yeah.
And you feel something when you watch the news and you see that they are doing this thing that's making you so mad. And,
right.
And I'm like, I feel this energy within me that's something. It's better than nothing. And that's what's so addictive about the news.
Yes. Right? Yeah. I mean, so
but this is better, is what you said also.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, the
better.
major component of, so like I was talking about, like holding your breath. So a lot of times people get into the breathing pattern of there's a stressful event and they do this and they hold the breath. Mm-hmm. And something in them knows that they don't have to feel what's happening in the moment. And so it becomes a long-term pattern. Well, it also becomes a long-term pattern that you don't feel anything. So you don't feel good either. Mm-hmm. So then you're trying to have experiences where you can just feel something, because feeling numb is, it's like, it seems like it's an attractive idea at first, but over the long term, like depression kicks in, all this kind of stuff, because you're not really feeling anything. So when you connect your breath, a lot of times there's tons of resistance around that, because you've spent a lifetime suppressing all that shit. And now you got to feel it, at first, once you like release it and integrate it, all this kind of stuff, then you start to feel good. Mm-hmm. It's so funny. There was a show on years ago. It was called 6 Feet Under. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that show?
I remember seeing like commercials for it.
Yeah, so I started watching it before I got into breath work. Like, I was addicted to this show. It was so dark, right? I was just like addicted to the really dark things. And I just like, I couldn't figure out, it was like, so it had like a, like death and sex are very closely related. They're very, it's, second chakra energy. Mm-hmm. And, so there was something, it was so twisted, when I think about it, like, cause it was, basically they were undertakers, they ran a funeral home and all this kind of stuff. There was all this other weird shit going on, but it definitely was something that just appealed to, I think, my own darkness that I hadn't like owned in myself.
Yeah, own it.
And, so then I started doing breath work, and then I got to where I couldn't tolerate it. I was like, I turned it on. I'm like, I can't watch this shit, So I I wanted to, feeling good became the thing that I was more, I don't even want to say that I was addicted to it, because it wasn't like, it wasn't like I was walking around like I was high all the time, but I definitely was like feeling just like a sense of peacefulness. I would have those, heightened consciousness moments that then would just kind of integrate into my day to day. And then, whatever events would come up. I mean, I could have people screaming at me right now, and I don't even, it doesn't even have I can feel it, but I don't have to like jump into their field and do something about it. Like I can like just stay with myself.
Yeah. You're grounded more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's been like probably of all the things, because I used to I'm an empath.
Mm-hmm, me too. I think we feel what other people feel. And
oh yeah. And so like people just be like, "Wah," like this, and I would just like jump right on the train and just,
God. It would overwhelm. I sometimes, whatever, it overwhelms me to the point where I just like, I'm drained.
Yes.
And I have to go like take a nap or whatever. Like I'm done for the day.
I mean, I can't handle it. It's not like something I want to like hang out
and I can't
in
let
all
that
the time.
fucking affect me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this, having been doing the breathing, I feel like I'm able to resist that overtaking of other people's energy.
Yeah, you stay with yourself.
Yeah.
You get to where you're just like, you become your own best friend. Your soul becomes, the more you breathe, the more in relationship with your soul you are. And that is your ultimate partner. Mm-hmm. And then everything outside of that becomes an expression of that relationship. So that's ultimately what you're breathing, like when you connect your breath, inspiration is in spirit, it's breathing in
the spirit.
Yep.
And breathing in the spirit.
Breathing in the spirit.
Oh, I like that.
So that's what that's all about. Yep.
That's where you get inspiration.
Yes.
Well, I mean, like another example of how this has kind of affected me, I used to dread meetings with even my own team. Like SHEATH has become relatively successful, but it was already relatively successful, and now it's like just moving on that path forward. Mm-hmm. But I have more to do now than I did then, but I couldn't handle it back then, and it's more now, and I'm handling it, but it was less then, but I couldn't even handle it because I was so like, I would go weeks or a month without talking to my team, just because I would be like, I can't deal with this right now,
right.
Because my energy was so low, and the thought of it would bring this anxiety of like, I didn't sleep last night. Had nothing to make up for that. Like breathing wasn't, I would work out and stuff, but then I'd be more tired probably.
Right.
So now I'm, I work out, I have my meetings, and I take I usually in the morning do like a pretty religiously a breath work session before I like start my day.
Yeah. The greater your self-care regimen, the bigger you can get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You
have to have that foundation. Mm-hmm. And, I'm the same way. I mean, you would never know it, but I was very reclusive. In the early years that I was married, I didn't even talk to my neighbors. They'd want to wave at me, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
I would get such anxiety. My background was, I was sexually abused by my dad, so I didn't talk to men. I didn't look them in the eye. Like I didn't want to invite anything. So I was a completely different person. Like I transformed into this person that I'll talk to anybody. Nothing scares me anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's like been the biggest thing for me. And so it's like, again, it comes back to like you're literally, the more you breathe, the more anchored in your soul you become. And that's your true source of confidence. And it doesn't come from anything outside of you. Mm-hmm. And then it also makes it so that you can like create this enormously big life, but you're not attached to it, because you know that your biggest source is internal, and that everything external is just a reflection of that. So it's like living from the inside out instead of from the outside in.
It's like a love fest.
Yeah.
It makes me think of like a rave or something, but
Yeah.
like if everybody was breathing properly.
Oh, what a different world, right?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Well, and like, with the internet, and that's what this podcast is trying to promote, is these types of tricks, tips and tricks of success, and not just in, business, but your own health and
Everything,
well-being.
your relationships.
Yeah. And it starts within.
Yeah.
And if you fuel that fire, fire needs oxygen.
That's right.
And if we're, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Oxygen, energy, it's all kind of hand in hand. I love burning stuff. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
It's fascinating what fire is, that it's just the ethereal. It's like air, but it can burn you. You can't grab it, but it'll burn you.
And it's catalytic, it's like, it's a catalyst. Fire's a catalyst,
Yeah.
creates more energy. Like that's how we heat our homes. It's the sun is fire. Like that's what makes life happen.
Yeah. Life.
So, but it needs oxygen.
It needs oxygen. Yeah. And so we're oxygen.
At least here on Earth anyway.
Yeah. For now, till we come up with something else.
Right.
But okay, but can you over oxygenate?
You can hyperventilate, which is not an over oxygenation. It's carbon dioxide. So a lot of times people, when they have
That's because they're not exhaling, right?
Yeah, they're not exhaling and they're doing it a little too fast, So I will have people breathe a really deep, rapid breath that they're not quite used to, and they start feeling things. They start feeling tingly and all this kind of stuff, and it flips them out, and they think they're hyperventilating, and but what it is it's activating your nervous system. So you're starting to feel stuff that you've never felt before, and there's strange things going on in your body. I've had people go into full-on paralysis where they can't move, but that's a reflection of how much frozen energy they have in their body. And so we just follow it through from beginning to end, and then the body releases, and then the next time it gets easier, and then eventually they don't have any paralysis anymore because they've done that releasing. It's all in the nervous system. So
I have a question about that, because like with Wim Hof, you breathe in fully, but only exhale halfway or so, or whatever, and you do that over and over and over and over and over. But I find that could be like maybe you're not exhaling all the carbon dioxide, and couldn't that cause a problem or something? Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know enough. I'm definitely not a chemist. I don't know enough about that.
Yeah, because I don't find that it's a problem. And ultimately, you end up exhaling for that one long exhale. And I guess I'll get to that. Like,
right.
I feel like sometimes I don't exhale enough. All
A
the
full
way out.
exhale is super important.
That is where I'm going.
Yeah.
Why is that
super important? It was interesting, my son contracted COVID, and he was breathing through it, and he had an awareness that it was going to be super important to do a full exhale. And the reason for that is that this is one of the other really cool superpower things about breathing, is that your lungs were designed to be the heavy lifters of releasing toxins. It's not your organs. It's not your liver. It's not your...
Was he on like some kind of psychedelic? He came to this realization. Very interesting. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So he just innately knew that if he just did a deep exhale, that if the virus was in his lungs, that if he just did a full exhale, he could breathe it out fully, because your lungs are designed to release up to 70% of the toxins in your body.
Breakthrough, people. That's deep, right?
Yeah. So a lot of times when something settles into your lungs is because, number one, you're not breathing deep enough. And number two, you're not exhaling fully. You're not using your lungs to the ultimate capacity to release those toxins.
I remember the CNN Cuomo guy talking about,
yes,
he's like, breathe deep, but he was saying breathe deep. That was as what I was imagining him saying. I didn't correlate corresponding exhale.
Yeah, I don't think he mentioned that either, but I heard that as well. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
The pulmonary guy said, what you're wanting to, because he talked to a pulmonologist, and the pulmonologist said, look, you're going to feel really crappy and you're going to want to just lay in bed and just die. He's like, but you need to get up and you need to move your body. And he said, you need to breathe. He said, you need to put your arms up and down. A lot of vocalists, anybody that uses their voice for a living.
Because that opens up the lungs.
It opens up the lungs. Yep. And it's all muscular, so you have to activate all of this stuff. And so I was like, yes. Yes.
Tell the people.
It's like,
Preach.
breathe. It feels like it's
tight. He was saying it was like tight, or I've heard, I don't know if he
Yes.
was saying that, but it feels like it's like.
And he said it's the last thing you want to do is breathe because it hurts. He says, but if you breathe, that's how you're going to get through it.
And like how did it go with your son? Like, and he was exhaling and
He was exhaling. It actually never settled into his lungs. He just had like the excruciating headache, and his spine was in a lot of pain, and his legs were in a lot of pain. That was like kind of scary because I was worried about the whole blood aspect and maybe clotting happening. But he had a fever for like 6 days straight and just sweat bullets. And
no way.
I have a different perspective on all of this. I feel like it's a purification process. And so, just depending on where you are in terms of how often you are purifying your body and clearing out your body, illness, regardless of what the thing is that's what your body is doing, is it's responding to it and it's purging all the,
Bad.
toxic stuff. And so it's an opportunity. You can look at it any way you want, and it almost doesn't matter if it's factual or not. It's like
Placebo.
it's mindset. It's your mindset around it. So that's what he did. And it, like I said, it never. He was an asthmatic. I say was because he finally figured out by being a vocalist that as he was, because he would just have, issues with breathing and stuff like that. And he found out that there was like a really big connection between stomach acid. He had acid reflux, and he thought that he finally figured that was probably like the number one cause for his asthma issues. And he was given some direction for opening his vocals and his lungs up more, and it had to do with what was going on in the stomach. And once he did that, he didn't have any more asthma problems. He never needs to use the inhaler or anything like that. But I was concerned. I mean, he'd been an asthmatic since he was
for
3,
sure. That's one of those pre-existing conditions.
But
that
it
you
never
would've-
went into his lungs. And like I said, he was doing the detoxing. I gave him all kinds of other things. I gave him CBD, and I sent, thank goodness for
He's
Amazon.
in New York or something, right?
Yeah, I was in
Okay.
New York City. Yeah, I
Yeah.
sent him stuff
Whoa.
straight to his door and just gave him all the stuff that worked for me. And it was out of my lungs as well. And I too.
You had it also?
I did back in
Wow.
January before we even knew anything about it. It wasn't until they were talking about what all the symptoms were and everything else. And I'm like, wow, I had that shit back in January. That's
my God.
exactly what I remember thinking. That was the weirdest thing I'd ever had.
Whoa.
But intuitively, I was breathing in deep. I was using certain essential oils and stuff like that were antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, all this kind of stuff. And breathing in really deep and exhaling, just because it's just a part of who I am. I've been doing it for 15 years, so.
Yeah.
Well, longer than that, actually. I guess 17 years, almost 18. So, yeah. But he intuitively did that because he's a vocalist and he's been doing breathing exercises and like he totally
Exactly.
gets it. He used to think I was crazy being the crazy breath working lady, Now he gets it.
Well, they have strong lungs, vocalists, I
Yes.
imagine, and
Yeah.
you would exercise them and strengthen
breathing is
them.
super important.
Yeah. And as you were saying that he had asthma, it made me think of the didgeridoo and the
Yes.
amount of lung capacity. And
With a really long exhale.
yeah,
Right?
those are so, I have one and they're hard to continuously play. I don't think I've kind of been able to do it for like a couple of breaths, but it's hard. You can't keep it going. Like,
have you played it since you've been doing this Wim Hof stuff? I'd try it.
Yeah.
See how you do. I
Yeah.
think you probably find that you can do it a lot longer.
Probably. I need to get a better one. The longer versions hold the echo longer, so you can have that moment. Like, you need like an instant to breathe in through your cheeks. You're like breathing in or through your nose. You're holding air in your cheeks while you're breathing in through your nose, and also blowing out. It's like this. It's hard. It's a circular breathing.
Yep.
It's almost impossible. It's really hard to do.
Yeah, until it isn't.
Breathe out while you're breathing in at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. But, it's like connected breathing feels like that's one of the reasons why, I've been a facilitator, is because when you get away from your natural breathing pattern, then I have you breathe for a solid hour and it feels like a ton of work.
Yeah.
Like you'll just go to sleep within 10 breaths. So my job is to keep you, because it's kind of like I'm a personal trainer for breathing. And we're really like using this thing that's designed to be everything.
Pumps energy into your body.
It's like a major generator on so many levels,
Like a locomotive, engine, steam engine.
But it takes a little while to wake it up,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that I'm like the type of person that would try these types of things. A lot of people are like, I breathe all day,
Yeah.
I already breathe.
Not
bro.
really. That's a lot of people would say that to me, like, well, isn't everybody breathing? I'm like, well, one would think so, but not really.
Right? Yeah.
There's a lot of shallow breathers out there, a lot of people holding their breath. The degree of stress that people are holding in their bodies is going to be directly connected to how much they're holding their breath and not taking a deep breath in.
And then I was going to say this earlier when you were saying that, because I used to hold my breath all the time. I used to take Adderall, which I don't know if it corresponds, but I had tons of energy, but I'd find myself holding my breath, and I feel like it was something to do with that drug for some reason.
Yeah.
Because it would, it's a stimulant, and which increases maybe like tension, stress, and I would just be, it almost felt good though. And I know just people out there, don't do it, because it releases dopamine in your brain on a heavy level, like the Adderall. It's like it's doing meth. I'm telling you, just don't do it.
Yeah.
And you feel good all day doing it, and you have tons of energy, but it's eating you alive. Luckily, I did it for a couple of years. I know people have done it for like a decade, and a lot of journalists do it, and I'm waiting for them to fall apart, because you can't. It's not sustainable.
Yep.
You just can't do it forever, but you can breathe forever.
That's the key phrase right there, right? What's sustainable?
Yeah.
So it's all connected. So once you start connecting with your breath, connecting with your breath, feeling connected within yourself, you start feeling connected to the people around you. You start feeling that that's sustainable, and your mind automatically starts going toward paying attention to what is sustainable in the external world and what isn't. So we could actually change the world by breathing, because it's just like a natural progression of where your attention goes.
I've recently had another realization during a breath session, I'm pretty sure. And this was pretty big. I said I don't have them that often, but I do, I guess. And it was like, what thoughts am I having throughout the day that create a drag on me?
Yes.
Yeah. And like, I'm trying to, when you have a car, you want it to go fast, you want no drag, no resistance, and everything to be real smooth and sleek.
Yep.
And as I'm going through my day, there's, I think, certain thoughts, and it's like this hitting a gust of wind, and it kind of it takes the wind out of my sails for a second. And these are repetitive thought patterns that don't serve me, that are not helpful in any way. Probably something self-destructive or something self-critical about myself that is not even true. But my point of mentioning it is because I want to pay attention to that and find those thoughts and eliminate them.
And breathe. And all you have to do is breathe through the thought. It's like, don't even try to eliminate it, because if you try to eliminate it, you're going to
think about
create
it
more
more.
resistance. Yeah. So
What you
you're
resist
having the thought
persists, yeah.
and just be kind of neutral about it and breathe with the thought. And eventually you won't have the thought anymore.
Yeah. Just melt away
Yeah.
off the brain.
Yeah.
Wash in warm water.
Anytime we're trying to get rid of something, like you said, what you resist persists, it will come back bigger. That's why I like watching the Matrix movies, right? Like he's fighting and he's fighting and he's fighting, and then you see something go off in his mind where he's like, I don't have to fight with this anymore. And he stops and everything stops.
That's deep.
Yeah. That's why I like watching the Matrix.
I never put that together.
Yeah, I was probably when I saw the second one. What's that one? Revolutions. Yeah, I saw that in the movie theater, and I remember I started crying because I was like, yes, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Just stop fighting. It's like you're like trying to push things away and you're fighting with it, and you're gonna I'm gonna make this stop, and it's like, no, just breathe with it, acknowledge it. And so whether it's a thought or a feeling, that's a whole purpose of doing connected breathing, like over here where we're breathing for an hour or whatever. It's like, it's so that in those moments you can have the awareness, like you already have the awareness. So now you can just have the awareness. See, you're going to make me cry.
Yeah, that was good. That's good to have these. I don't know. That's why I love having these conversations.
Yeah. It's like you can have that awareness and like offer it love instead. Love it. Like, cause that's all it ever needed was your love. Just love it instead of like making it wrong, and breathe with it and give it spirit. And that's it. And then it becomes effortless. And I'm still working on it,
like it's never gonna.
I actually, I told you in the beginning, I'm putting myself in all these different, this is a thing, like, yeah, I'm a breath worker, but I like to put myself in different scenarios, to find where any kind of little nooks and crannies are that I'm still having resistance, or I'm in my head. And lately I've been taking voiceover classes. And trying to step into a character. And I've worked so hard for years of being me that I'm like having a hard time getting out of my head about that and being and getting into like a little girl character. And so it's really showing me how much I'm still in my head, and that critical me is like, oh, you're doing this wrong, blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm like, oh, this is cool. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about
a new learning kind of growth that you have to go through. Yeah. I mean, the easy thing to say is let go and just do it, like let go and be that. I would like to try like impressions and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of the podcasters I listen to are really good at them, or at least they try during the podcast, and even doing accents,
right?
Trying to hold an accent for a long time, it starts morphing into other accents,
right?
And it's an exercise, a mental exercise.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I'm excited about it. So it's so funny because my teacher says, Cyndy needs to leave the room.
Yeah.
I can hear Cyndy being hypercritical and like, she's like, it's not she's like, it's about you stepping into a way of being and letting the natural expression of what that is be what it is. She's like, it's not about you being what you think I want you to be.
Yeah.
She's like, it's about, she doesn't put it in as many terms like my soul, but it's about my soul embodying this character. Like you see a lot of really good actors, anybody that's really good, they get into the character and they are that. And they remove their critical mind from it. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why people are drawn to that profession. It makes sense to me, So and you can kind of sort of you can get lost in it and like be something that you wouldn't be in your, normal everyday life, and kind of be sort of an airbender and do all kinds of, magical shit, and so it's
Bend
cool.
your personality. I mean, we'll have to wrap it up pretty soon, but it did spark this memory of basketball and high school basketball. And I get on the court, and it's the first time my dad comes to watch me, and all I can think about is he's watching me.
Yep.
And I sucked. It really was really bad, but I guess people could learn to get out of their head so much, and they don't teach you that in school or in basketball, and maybe they didn't know, and I don't really even know how to tell someone to do it. You know?
It's not like, pick up a cup.
Yeah.
It's definitely an inside out practice, and it takes time to complete. It's conditioning. So you're completely shifting around your conditioning. The beautiful thing is that is your nature as a soul. So if you can just get out of your own way about it.
Yeah, it was weird.
It's the hardest thing.
And I've gotten better. I mean, because I knew that happened, and it's been a thing that's plagued my mind. But because it's like going on stage, people watching you. That's the biggest fear. One of the biggest fears. So it's not like I'm this freak, obviously. It's like, and even doing podcasts initially, when I first got on to Facebook, did a Facebook Live, I was like, I couldn't even talk. It was weird. Yeah.
I get it.
And now, it's usually let go. And, you were saying like getting into character. I don't consider, I mean, this is me getting into me. But
being comfortable as you.
Yeah.
And not worrying about what anybody thinks, right?
Me trying to now, if I was to try to put on a show and be another character, and that would spark probably that whole mental, they're all going to laugh at you or whatever thing. But I think now I would be better at it just because who gives a fuck? I think that's really what it boils down to.
Who gives a fuck? It totally does.
Yeah.
But so it's and it's not even really about anybody else. Like I'm so aware that is my own critical mind. And so, I peeled away all of these layers of my critical mind. Like I said, my history was like, I was reclusive. I didn't talk to anybody. So I've peeled away all these layers, but there's always more. There's always more layers to peel away, and there's always more opportunities for you to find where you are getting in your own way and just work with it, and play with it. And so that's exciting, that's why like even the aspect of quote unquote getting old or whatever, that's what that is like you get to, people get to a certain point in their life and they think they're all done. And I feel like I'm just getting started. So
the constant growth, the inward search and that whole journey is, I think, far more challenging and rewarding than this attempt, which will never happen. I mean, you're not going to conquer yourself, but attempt to fix the outside world.
Yep.
That's what everyone is trying to do right now, it seems like. And I'm like, you fucking idiots.
Yeah.
Just look in and fix this is what you can around you. And it starts with you. And maybe it starts with breathing. Like maybe you're not even thinking clearly because you're a shallow breather.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
You're wrapped up in your emotions, and you're just everyone. Let's go back to like logic and maybe even appreciate what you have. It's pretty fucking good.
Well, right. So I love, this is kind of what I love about, this is one of the things I said from the very beginning is those that, went through COVID and like had some real breathing issues and stuff like that. I guarantee from this day forward that they won't take their breath for granted.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing quite like
shirt,
not being able to breathe. Yeah.
Should make that.
Yeah.
don't take your breath for granted.
Yeah.
Use it to
Everything.
be.
It's the first thing you do. It's the last thing you do, and everything in between. So
loving
why
it.
wouldn't it be important?
Yeah. I mean, because people, maybe their life is too easy.
Well, it's just like what we do with if anything is available to us all the time, we take it for granted.
Yeah.
We just take for granted that it's always going to be there until it isn't, and then we get it, and that's a powerful lesson. I think most of us are not born, appreciating a really full deep breath until we can't do it, and so I think it's important that like it's not necessarily a bad thing if you've gone through something like that. Like it really drops you deep down into appreciation. Like I've done quests. I've gone for, 4 days without food and water and people and technology and all this kind of stuff. And it dropped me down into a place of simplicity and recognizing I didn't need as much as I think I did. I certainly didn't need more, but it also made it so that I appreciated, like, my first peach after not eating for 4 days was like an orgasm in my mouth. It was like the best thing ever. And my first shower after not showering for 7 days, like, holy shit.
Wow.
Like
the first meal after a fast is you feel the energy and it's just like so juicy or whatever.
Yeah.
Mouth watering.
Yeah. So it's a good thing to, go without something for a little while so you can appreciate it more.
Interesting. Hold your breath, but also breathe deep. Do experiment with your life and your body, your mind.
Let it be playful.
Yeah.
Play.
Don't be so serious.
Yeah. Spoken from one of the most serious people I know, myself.
It's a game. We're here to play. We're here to win, people. But I'm here to lift everyone up along with me as I rise up, because that's my trajectory. And that, at least that's my intention, is to just keep growing, getting bigger, stronger, faster, and like better. And I want to carry those I love and I care about with me, and whoever's willing to come along,
Right.
So thank you everyone for listening. Hope you got something out of it. You can check out Cyndy here at Love Breath on Instagram and on YouTube.
YouTube, it's Cyndy, CYNDY.Clemens, CLEMENS.
And on Anchor Radio.
That one is Rewrite Alchemy.
Ooh, cool. That's a
Yeah.
good book. The Alchemist.
Yeah.
I wonder if Stacy's read
Well, that's what you're doing. That's alchemy is happening when you're breathing in and breathing out. There's all kinds of magical stuff happening. It's alchemy.
I love
at
it.
a really basic level. Yeah.
So cool. Get into it, people. Do it.